My teacher, Reverend Patrick, has a word for us today that is one of the main reasons I come here, except the love that you all have. So thank you very much.
Greetings. Wonderful faces as I look out there, a lot of smiles. Well, the wonderful thing that God did when we were made is gave us this. Seems like a cut in the face, but it's it makes us all happy just to see us use it. Well, today I'd like to share with you one of the main principles for success. Anybody here would like to be successful? Yes. Anybody here would like to be more successful? Yes. Still, only 15 hands went up. Where are the rest of you? Well, looking at the principles, the spiritual principles, everything is based on a spiritual principle. Everything worthwhile. Everything that you are doing that's meaningful, that can bless someone else, that can touch a life. Because, you know, it's silly if we came here and lived 50 years to 150 years, and I'm giving you a lot of time, and not be a blessing to somebody, at least one person. So we learn through spiritual practice that we can be indeed the light of the world. Each of us is a center where the presence of God is individualized and emanates to the rest of the world. And I think that's such an honor, such a privilege, such a blessing to be able to say, yes, I am living my life today. I feel filled up, I'm blessed, and someone today will be touched. So I looked up some references about success, and I found that faith is the key. And a lot of people say they have faith. And a lot of people say, what do I have faith in? How do I use my faith? Well, Eric Butterworth, who is one of the major metaphysical writers and major New Thought writers, he said that faith is the spiritual capacity by which we may form and shape the ever-present basic element of spiritual substance. Now, that doesn't say a whole lot in English, but I'll have to translate it to you, because that is not normal language. We don't speak like that when we speak to each other. We speak in a different way. And this is my job, to put it in a way that all of us becomes palatable, that all of us can take something with us today. I remember a story written in the Bible, in the book of Kings, 2 Kings, chapter 4, and I think it's the first 5 or 6 verses, lines, paragraphs. It is a story about a woman whose husband died and left her with 2 sons. And she met one of the prophets, and she said, I am in real trouble. She said, Elisha, what am I going to do? And he says, what are you talking about? And she said, I have 2 sons. You know my husband died. We haven't paid our expenses. And they're going to come and take my 2 sons to sell them as slaves so that our expenses can be paid. That's the Talmudic law anyway. So that was going to happen. That she hadn't been able to pay her bills, and the authorities were going to repossess her, but her sons, to sell them into slavery, that her expenses might be paid. And he says, well, what can I do for you? She said, what can I do? He said, okay, what do you have in your house? And she looked at him and she was a little confused, but she said, I only have 1 cup of oil. 1 cup of oil. And he said, what I want you to do is go to your neighbors and their friends and your friends and borrow a vessel from each of them. And don't do it in a small way. Get a bunch of people to give you vessels. And I want you to fill those vessels with oil. Now, she didn't question. She says, I have 1 cup of oil. And he said, get as many cups from other people and fill them with oil. She didn't question that. She went out and got many, many vessels. And she filled them, and she said, what do I do with them? He says, sell them and pay your expenses and live happily with your son. So the way it worked out was the sons went out and got these vessels, brought it in the house. She filled them up, and she had some more oil left. And she said, I need another vessel. And they said, we don't have any more. And at that point, the oil stopped running. Can you beat that? Anyway, she was able to do that. And she says, what do I do with the rest of the oil? He says, live happily with your sons for the rest of your life. So, this is a woman who was buried and plagued by the common problem of onliness. I didn't say loneliness. I said onliness. And a lot of people speak about their life as only this. You ever said that about yourself? Don't answer. Think about it. Because almost everybody has said, I'm only human. You've heard that. That's a common one. And some people stretch it out and say, I'm only poor. I'm only this. I'm only that. I'm disadvantaged. I'm only. But you know, this woman is such a perfect example because she was really plagued and buried into this only life. Onliness. But she had faith. She followed the advice of one person whom she regarded as a prophet. And we all know that Elisha was a very major one. And he was able to show her how the law of faith works. You know, in the Bible it says faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I don't even realize, many years ago when I first heard that, I didn't understand how faith could be a substance. But the substance of things hoped for, she had that. She practiced it, and it worked out for her. But all of that story really is a metaphor for our lives. Because getting additional vessels refers to broadening one's horizon. Step out of the onlyness. If you find yourself saying, I'm only this, I'm only that, I only have so much, I can only afford so much, onlyness plagues the life of the average person. And I'm not saying that you're a bunch of average people. But if you believe in onlyness, you've been practicing onlyness for a long time, it's time to give up that practice and have faith that there is a substance beyond what you now see, way past the onlyness. So he said, go out and broaden your horizons, get some vessels, get some new things to do. He said to her, pour the oil from the vessels into another and another and another until all the vessels are filled. And when these were no more vessels, there were no more vessels for the oil stopped. What does that refer to? In other words, as much as she could conceive and believe, she could achieve. But as soon as you stop believing, as soon as you feel like you're coming to the end of this, the loneliness kicks in and the oil stops running. The oil is the ability, your consciousness and your ability to succeed, to move forward in life, to have the extra strength to go forward. No one experiences lack because of a lack of abundance. Should I say that again? No one experiences lack because of a lack of abundance. Abundance is everywhere. It's never short. In other words, God hasn't shortchanged any of us. But we believe in lack, so the abundance, although it exists there for us, it doesn't have your name on it because it waits for you to put your name on it. It waits for you to claim it. It waits for you to identify it and say, this portion is mine. So I said, no one experiences lack because of a lack of abundance, but only because of their lack of awareness of the ever-present reality of divine abundance and the faith to share it so that it would manifest in form. That's what she did. She blessed so many other lives because she had the faith to say, okay, I'm going to fill up these vessels, and my next step is to sell them. People were waiting to buy them. But she ran out of vessels, and the oil stopped running. The oil dried up. It would not have dried up had she continued to seek more vessels. But the great example for us is to realize that there is no end to the goodness of God. God's goodness doesn't dry up. For some of us in consciousness, it has already. A lot of people have said, well, I'm never going to make it. This success business is for certain people, not for me. They don't say those actual words. I'm exaggerating it so that you can realize that in a subtle way, that's what you've been saying. If you do not have the abundance that you seek, and the more of the goodness of life that you deserve, if you feel like that's not coming. God is a ceaseless flow of abundance. Ceaseless flow of abundance. Anytime you tap into the abundance of God, you're going to get flow. Because why? Because you are a vessel into which God pours itself. God pours itself into you, through you, with love, with peace, with joy, and above all, with opportunity to share. Are you willing to be that vessel? Yes. Go like this, because when we do like that, you know what happens? The power says, okay, I'm flowing. In other words, doing this causes the vessel to open. It's symbolic, but the symbol leads to a real experience when you understand what it is I'm talking about. What do you have in your house? Do you ever said to yourself, well, I think I'm reaching the end here. What do you have in your house? Think about what that represented to her. The potential of saving her two sons, of having a happy life with them, watching them grow up, raising them to be productive young men. The feeling that because her husband died, she was still able to make it through in a good way because she tapped into the abundance of God with faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. If you have to, like he said to her, borrow a few vessels. It means elevate your consciousness Widen your horizon of faith. Identify yourself with the idea of the boundlessness of the universe. That's all of that message in that story. All the substance of the universe is present right where we are. We must identify there is a source, even if it feels like 1 cup of oil, which seems so minute, seems so insignificant. How many times have you had an idea and you threw it away because you felt you couldn't make a difference with it? You felt it was little and insignificant. In other words, you had no faith in the prodding of spirit, in the impressions that God was trying to make upon us. You know, God does not, in the Bible it says God does not interfere in the affairs of man. And that's true. Because if God interfered in the affairs of men, we'd not be free people. We wouldn't have any choices. In other words, we'd be robots. And God would be the puppeteer. And we would be the puppets. But no. God says, I provide for you. Go and make good of your life. Go ye into the world and multiply. What are you doing about multiplying? Are you a household of onlyness? Be careful about onlyness. Watch your words when you say only this. That's a consciousness of lack. It's a consciousness that you are not aware that there is more. There is more. More is abundant. Because God is a flowing river of success, of goodness, of abundance. So how do we achieve this consciousness? It's okay for you to sit there and me to talk here and we walk out saying, well, I don't know what he was talking about, but I don't know how to do that stuff. Okay. The widow was told to get more vessels. And I told you what that meant, about expanding your capacity to receive. That may require inquiry on your part. How do I find the information? Are there classes? Are there opportunities? Are there books? Are there tapes? Are there ways in which I can gather the knowledge so that I can increase my capacity? You always increase your capacity from inside out, not from outside in. From outside in, it runs all over you and it gets away. From inside out, it emerges from the resource that is there. We always learn best when we learn from the inside out. The first time I tried snorkeling, I pushed myself through the fear because I was afraid I was going to drown. I was not a good swimmer underwater. I was a worse swimmer above water. But I stood there and I let them show me what to do. And I said, okay, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. I'm going to try it. I have to go through this fear. I went down, and to my surprise, I loved it. I loved it. I loved the view that I could see, the fishes that fly around me like they were flying. It's amazing. When you push through your fear and you take that one step of faith that says, the abundance is there for you. The water was there for me to dip into, and I went. And I never regretted it. In fact, I regretted not being able to stay longer because this was on a tour and it could only allow you so many minutes with whatever it is you're using. But I got through that. Fear is always based on either your past failures or someone else's failures. Yes? Go like this, it's true. Your faith in failures, because we have faith in failures. We have faith in not succeeding. Do you know that? More people use faith in not succeeding than they do in succeeding. They believe they'll never make it, and guess what? They live to prove it. And it becomes so evident that everybody can see it. Faith opens me up to a greater possibility of growth and expansion. Remember that demand always precedes supply. There is always someone waiting to buy a vessel of oil. Metaphorically speaking, there's always someone waiting to buy the oil. Demand always precedes supply, but fearlessness and determination and faith allows you to move forward. But fearfulness tries to make this whole thing work backwards. Because when we are afraid and we're fearful, we find ways in which to sabotage the good that we seek. And then we make excuses to justify why we didn't make it through. So I printed out something from the Science of Mind that I wanted you to see, to hear rather. And it's about faith. Dr. Holmes says on page 48 and page 49, he says, faith in a certain specific statement has power consciously to oppose, neutralize, erase, and obliterate the opposite mental attitude. I'll read that again. Faith in a certain specific statement. That could be an affirmation. It could be a decision you've made. It could be something that you have always wanted to achieve. That's your statement. He says faith in a certain specific statement has power to consciously oppose, neutralize, erase, and obliterate any opposite mental attitude. It is because of this fact that this is a science. It's a science because he says that we can definitely use it. It can be used, and we must accept it as such. He said the mystery with which most people surround the search for truth relative to this principle is not read out of it, is read into it. In other words, people make things up about things they don't understand. And they find ways in which to make it up in a way that justifies their miserable condition. How many people have justified their miserable condition? Because they've misread or read into it what they'd like to use to justify. In the Science of Mind on page 174, Holmes says, we cannot demonstrate beyond our ability to mentally embody an idea. That's the idea that you have faith in, that faith is able to obliterate any contrary belief or ideas. We cannot demonstrate beyond our ability to mentally embody an idea. The argument is between our experience, what the world believes, and what we ourselves conceive is the truth. This is what we've been talking about. So what do you have in your house? You have right now the key to your success. Right now. I'm going to invite you to take some time to contemplate where you have put that important thing, that important idea, that important vessel, that cup of oil that you are sitting on, that's waiting for you to use, that will allow you to experience success. Visualize yourself as already participating in the abundance of God. You're made in the image of God, in the likeness of God. And God is never short of anything good. Isn't that wonderful? You're made in the image and likeness of God, and you know God's abundance is always present. So if you're made in image and likeness, and you're not experiencing God's abundance, who's in the way? What's getting in the way? My anxiety, my fear, my lack of faith, my looking in the wrong places to find my key, my vessel of oil, which is right in our house. The vessel that you need to succeed is in your house. So, I invite you now to close your eyes. And I'm going to read to you my 10 statements that would allow you to make the first step. Take time to muse. Muse upon the thoughts that are going through your head that says, this is what I have in my house. Take time to reflect. Reflect upon how you have or have not paid attention to the proddings of Spirit for the greatness that you are to come out of you. Take time to be silent so you can hear the inner voice, the still small voice. Take time to be in awe. Remember the greatness of your being. Remember the greatness of the universe that you are brought into, the spiritual universe where there is limitlessness. Even in the physical universe, there is limitlessness. Take time to contemplate. What are you working on? Take time to meditate. Be open to the voice of God. Take time to be alone. That means remember that you and God are a majority. Take time to be quiet. When you are quiet, you can hear. You can be guided. Take time to hear the silence. There's a silence inside of us that reveals all that we need to know. And you know this, you've done this. That any moment that you have ever taken to be in total silence, just to be silent, something wonderful occurred to you. And the only reason you haven't had it is because you have allowed noise to get in your place. The noise of living, the noise of others, the noise of discontent, the noise of fear. Take time to know yourself, because you are a center where God is expressing in a unique and inimitable way that never will be repeated, never was here before. So you are special. God specialized in each of us, giving us the opportunity to express God's divine nature, made in the image and likeness of God. Remember, faith in a certain specific statement, a statement about your success, faith in a certain specific statement has power to consciously oppose, neutralize, erase, and obliterate the opposite mental attitude. It is because of this fact that makes this a science. And we should definitely look that way at it, that we may be able to use it over and over. He said the mystery with which most people surround the search for truth relative to the principle that we're talking about, it's not read out of it, but read into it. Careful what you say, I only have, to about anything. And I love you to pieces. Namaste. God bless you.